On you, Phil.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome today. Today we've got Angelique, Racki, and BCAI founder, executive director, Breaking Chains, Advancing Increase. Thank you so much for being here. So we were talking a little bit a few moments ago about some of your martial arts background, and I am super curious to hear more about. Where did you get into martial arts, and who was it?
So I have a dual black belt in Hapkido and Hosinsul.
Wow.
So I practiced under Grandmaster Joshua Dingler, who was running combat martial arts at the time. He is currently the chief of police of Downs, Illinois. And he's pretty much focused on that. He doesn't, from what I understand, he's not training anyone anymore. Not because of anything, just transitions and shifts. But he took over a space in downtown Bloomington that was Phuket's, and it was ran by a Korean couple. Korean? I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure they're Korean. Ken. But anyways, he took that over, and he turned it into the Chinese Tea Emporium, and that he had put a dojo in the back and started training people. And so I used to go there for tea during the day, just randomly, because they would have Chinese tea ceremonies, and we would just sit there and talk like the group. It's just a Chinese tea ceremonies are really, really pretty powerful when done properly. But yeah, we would just talk about anything and everything. And then I just decided I need this. I want the physical self-defense to back up my mind. My mind is very strong, and I would like the physical to back it up and be able to defend myself if it happened. Plus, I had at the time a very significant fear of being raped. It was just a I don't even know where it came from, but it was there, and I wanted to have everything in my I want to have as many tools in my pocket as possible to avoid that, and even maybe help in a situation against somebody else hurting someone else. So yeah, I started with him and got my black belt. I want to say, see, I started in 2012. I'm trying to remember. I think it took maybe 7, 8 years. So yeah,
Yes, I actually I've done some training in Aikido when I was I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and
great.
the master that we had, he dabbled in everything. He would go to jujitsu seminars. You know, this was back in the
Yep.
'90s, in the early '90s. So jujitsu was just coming into America. So he was going to these jujitsu seminars. He was learning about military impact fighting. He was teaching us judo hip throws, arm bars, just all these wonderful self defense tactics. And the one that I really think he missed on, and I really wish I would have learned, is the triangle choke. I feel like the triangle choke, just being able to get that leg up over the head, and then putting that other one on, pulling the head and everything in. I feel like that's just something that should be in every human being's arsenal. And for me, it would develop. I mean, it gave me a ton of confidence once I actually learned it. Because if you're on the ground and somebody's on top of you, I don't know that I've ever seen a better defense than the triangle choke. That's my opinion. But
I'm so sorry, Angelique, but could you explain again how you first got into martial arts? I'm sorry for making you ask this question again.
Like repeat everything I just said.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Uh, there's a technical error in the audio. I'm so sorry.
Sure. It won't be as good, but yeah.
It's
So
okay. We'll make it great.
okay. I I got into martial arts, so I have a dual black belt in Hapkido and Hosinsul. Joint manipulations are super fun. I love close combat. I love. I'm at home close up. It's fun for me. Uh,
You were
we, huh?
well, you mentioned like doing it at this place that's owned by what you think a Korean couple, I think, who
I
they're
was
doing.
getting there.
Oh,
I was getting there. So I was going to, I would have tea, a round of tea, Chinese tea ceremonies at the Chinese Tea Emporium downtown, which was owned by, not at the time, but current Grandmaster Josh Dingler. And he had a dojo in the back. And I started training in 2012 because I had a pretty intense fear of being raped and overpowered. I'm not really haven't fully worked out where that came from. But I did, and I wanted to learn so that I could not only defend myself but others if they needed it. And yeah, so I started in the back of a Chinese tea emporium dojo.
So, and are you still training to this day?
I wish I could say yes. No, I am teaching. I don't actually have a dojo at the moment. I don't have a teacher at the moment. And plus life took over. Life took over, and I never wanted to be one of those people that got their black belt and quit. But circumstances kind of forced that hand, and it really sucks.
I'm sorry.
I don't like being a statistic in the wrong way.
Yep.
It was not my choice that I stopped.
Right after I got my black belt, and then a year and a half later I got my Kuki-wan, so I was actually registered in South Korea, and it was maybe 6 months after that I had to quit, but it was just because we couldn't afford it anymore. But that's life, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the BCAI.
The BCAI. I always think it's funny when people call it that. It's just funny because people do it a lot. It's funny. But it's BCAI Cultural Arts and Humanities. BCAI stands for Breaking Chains, Advancing Increase. So that's the what we do, and Cultural Arts and Humanities is how we do it. So the Cultural Arts and Humanities is the catalyst that we utilize to give people back their autonomy, to help them kind of recoup it. And so once that happens, their brain starts to not necessarily rewire, but like dismantle and unravel the wiring that has been forced upon them by either society, their parents, their siblings, abusers, literally across the board. So what we do is extremely important and very valuable. I don't know a lot of other people that are doing it. I know there are people. I wish I could connect with more entities that are doing this work, because we are pretty much the crossroads of like arts and cultural arts and like the social services. Like we're that crossroads. So we have a strong partnership with Creative Healing Art Therapy. They're in the same building as us. It's led by Carly Johnson. And what we do is we make sure that each student has access to either therapy or diagnosis if they need it for more attention in school, or if they need resources. We make sure that every family gets that, because when you have a child that needs to learn, the easiest way to lose them is keep them in survival mode. They'll never be able to absorb any information because they just can't. They can't, because they are either focused or they're scared of the situation. They're anxious. They're depressed. They're worried about their family. You know what I'm saying? Especially right now, if you don't know about world events, you cannot properly teach. Your students are getting lost, and you will not know how to recoup them if you have no idea what their family is terrified of or what is happening right now, or you know what I'm saying, across the board. So BCAI is that catalyst entity that makes sure parents, youth, children, teens can see themselves as more than just a number. They return to themselves. And when they do that, they start finding why they're here. They start doing it because we're making sure that they can. We give them the platform. We give them whatever skills, whatever resources they need, connections, a network, anything like that. So that's pretty much basic. Yeah, it's really deep work. We make sure that every individual knows that there is nothing wrong with them, no matter what they've been told and taught and have chosen to believe.
So how did you first start BCAI in the first place? This is something I've always wondered since I met you.
I was supposed to go to school for architecture, actually.
Right. I remember that part. I
Yeah.
remember.
That's what I really, really wanted to do since I was a kid. So I got my associates in the arts from Heartland Community College. And then I went to Georgia to Savannah College of Art and Design, which is where I wanted to go since I was like 16. And did the college visit. And then when I came back, it was like fall of 2011. And I just didn't have any desire to find a place to live, to find a job down there or anything like that. Cause I was going to move in the spring to get ready for the semester or whatever. And I just wasn't getting ready. And then all of a sudden this idea, I was like, well, I'm already teaching dance. Why don't I just open a school? I can do that. That's easy. Right. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And it seemed like almost everyone I knew at the time, majority, were all single parents. And everything is so incredibly expensive for single parents. And so I wanted to build an entity where you could get quality like art training without having to like choose between survival for the month or making sure your kids have what they need. So I don't want anybody choosing between purpose and survival. And so then that in the last 13 years has evolved into what it is now. So yeah.
That's really cool. And so I'll just share this real quick about me. So I used to live in Normal, Illinois. I lived there for like 3.5 years. And while I was there, I sat on the board for the Child Protection Network. And we did a lot of really great work helping support the Child Advocacy Center and CASA, your court-appointed special advocates.
Yep.
And I am just super duper proud of the work that we did there. We helped get new literature into the CAC that could help identify sexual abuse and young children. We actually put one of the first preventative preventative education into the elementary schools and in the state. So I mean, and that's so really what it does is it gives people who may not know what's going on, like me. I might not have known that I was in danger until I see the story or I have the tools to say, hey, this wasn't quite right. And it gives you this voice and you can articulate. And, I found that to be incredibly powerful.
That's amazing.
So it's good to see like other people in the community that have these same ideas and these same ambitions to really just create an opening for the arts. Because, my wife was a school teacher, and in the school that she was in, they kept talking about cutting the band and funding like $1 million into the football program.
Yeah.
I'm like, football is great, but I mean, it's music, it's art, it's a universal language, it's mathematics, it's science. Like, why would you rob people of their ability to create and their access to it? It just seems so fundamentally backwards to trying to educate someone and help pull them into this, progressive reality where they can think critically, they can make decisions for your own time. And I really love what you said about autonomy. I have a friend of mine who's a big time artist. He hit it big. And one of the things that he always talked about was calling the shots with your own time. Until you can call the shots with your own time, you're working for somebody else. Like you're not you're not quite there. And so that's something that I've been working for my personal life. Once I can call the shots for my own time, then I feel like I'm free to do all the wonderful things that are sitting inside my brain just in limbo.
Absolutely.
So one thing I feel like personally, and this is the creative arts and the martial arts are two halves of the same coin. I know that some people aren't going to agree with me on that, but here's the thing: they're both outlets for the human soul and basically how we express ourselves in sort of way. Like one interesting thing, I know that I'm speaking as a Hindu, and this may sound weird, but Ganesha, the god of wisdom, and Murugan, the god of war, are brothers. They both represent two halves of the human soul.
Interesting. I mean, I found the very similar experience with martial arts. I kind of see it as it's really the ultimate chess match. Like you're putting yourself in in potentially harm's way, but if you have the appropriate defense, you're going to be fine. If you know what to do in an offensive measure, like it, I see it a little bit differently than I think other people see it. I was never. I mean, even when we were, doing Muay Thai, me and Anshuman together, I never really did a whole lot of sparring because I just kept getting hurt, kept getting knocked around, and it would take me out for weeks at a time. It was terrible. So that's why I really like things like Aikido, where it really gives you like the footwork. To me, it's kind of the in between of dance and martial arts, and that's not to take anything away from Aikido. And the value that it brings to people. But I think, Aikido in particular is a really, interesting one. Like you really have to think about the moves that you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and no, that's absolutely accurate, Anshuman. The creative arts and martial arts, they're two halves, and they not only overlap, but they are one and the same. Um, I in my dojo when I was coming up in my belts, I was usually the one that would come up with almost brand new moves that my instructors hadn't even seen, like different ways of doing the moves and finding
Oh.
ways to get into the moves and stuff. Because I don't know if it was my background as a dancer or whatever. So yes, like everything overlaps. And it's an intuitive, I guess is the proper word in English, an intuitive thing, and it should always be an intuitive thing. And when you're dancing and when you're choreographing, like it's an intuitive thing that you draw upon your observances and you draw upon your experience, expertise, but also your inner self. Like it's just automatically into your moves. So when you see me like dipping in to get into a lock or something like that, like it's just an automatic, like it's an automatic move. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
I love practicing martial arts with people. I love teaching them locks and then us going back and forth of trying like a million different ways to get into the lock and okay, well, what's next kind of thing. And
That's the art of it. Like that's it.
exactly,
Like
it
that's
is an
the
art.
art.
It is absolutely an art, and that's why it's martial arts and not like something else. You know what I'm saying? Like martial sports. It could have been martial sport. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's martial
Yeah.
art. It is absolutely an art form.
Because
Uh, what was I gonna say?
take your time.
No, I lost it. Go ahead.
So
Well,
what?
so I just wanted to touch on the dance thing real quick because we did an interview with a professional boxer in Peoria named Anthony Holloway, and one of the things that he said was that influenced him the most as he was, getting his really getting his athleticism was dance. And then stepping into the boxing ring helped him feel just so much more natural. He
Yes.
had this fluid movement
Yes.
to him, which, by
Yes.
the way, Anshuman, I don't know if you saw the fight last night or
Yes.
two nights ago.
I shared the footage.
Yeah, he Tommy Hearnsed him. He sniped him with this right hand. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So we had a big win for a Peoria boxer last night. So we just want to
Nice.
shout him out. Way to go, Anthony Holloway. Get that stuff.
Nice. Congrats.
But I'm sorry, Anshuman, you had something that you wanted to bring in.
So yeah, not only that, even Bloomington itself like has a good sized martial arts community. Besides the folks you mentioned, like there's one place called Kingdom City Boxing, I think. Let me just.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
I don't know. I know. I know somebody, an associate of mutual acquaintance of ours. Oh, I haven't met him in person.
Sonny?
Yeah, Sonny. Sonny goes there, I think.
Sonny Garcia.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes. Yeah, he goes there. Like I think somebody who's associated there his name is William Hosea Jr. So I don't.
Yep.
Oh, you know him? Like okay, so
Mhm.
this is just you've never met this person, but his name. There's a former professional boxer from Peoria called Francis Sargent. He's William Hosea's cousin. So
Interesting.
so he actually trained Cedric in boxing. Like Francis actually fought against Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. He didn't win, of course, but
Yep.
he won the Golden Gloves actually.
Francis
So cool.
is the man. Yeah. And we were at a show last year during the summertime, and Francis was he was the ref in the show. Like I'd never seen a happier person in my life. He was in the ring, man. He was like this, just like ready to go. It was so cool. And I think he actually got a lifetime achievement award that night for his work in the community for helping to develop the youth.
Brilliant.
So it's so extraordinary. Like this is also another crazy story about the Bloomington community. Well, I've been actually trying. This is before I even started Fight Talks, so I think, but I've been trying to get someone connected with your BCAI. So there's a retired. Well, he's not retired anymore, but he's a former Muay Thai instructor from Thailand named Dan Chai. He lives in Bloomington. So he drives all the way to Peoria Muay Thai in town to teach us. Like this guy used to train professionals outside of Thailand. Like, he's an extraordinary individual. Barely speaks a lick of English though, but he will turn you into a champion.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Because if you just throw something around here in Central Illinois. I think maybe because of Caterpillar, but also because of business. But you could see all people from all over the world around here, like if you by just throwing a rock.
Yeah.
It's
It's one of my
extraordinary.
So
favorites. I love it.
I've got a question for you, Angelique. What do you think martial arts, or what role do you think martial arts can play in youth development? So going to like a teenage, like that 12 to 18 year range, I feel like I mean, honestly, really even before that, because when you look at the studies from Yale and Harvard, they used to offer, and they might still do this, but they would offer free tuition if you were in particular areas that had been underserved. And they found that 99% of it went unused because there wasn't early enough intervention. They were trying to intervene at really at the college level when people are in high school, and the time to intervene was actually in like the third grade when kids are about 8 years old. So I just found that really interesting. And for me personally, martial arts kind of gave me this confidence that I could carry with me, that I felt like I could take care of myself, or at the very minimum de-escalate and get out of a situation that I maybe found to be uncomfortable, or maybe it was turning into something crazier. But I'm curious from your perspective how you think martial arts can play in that role.
Okay. Martial arts, self-defense. I have watched numerous youth come through BCAI, and martial arts in particular. So if we don't even touch on the dance program, because we have a very strong dance program. We haven't had it in the last year, but our first 12, 13 years, we did have it. And it was so strong, and the amount of youth that were touched by that. But the martial arts program specifically, when you know that you are ready for things to happen to you, you're not focused on what am I going to do if things happen to me. When you are not focused on what if things are going to happen to me, you have room to learn. You have room to connect. You see people differently. You see nature differently. You have room for it. When you create a martial arts family, it's almost stronger than any other family. When you bond over something so physically demanding, I suppose, to an extent, and mentally demanding, and you're learning it together, and you're growing with it together, there's this feeling that you can go into any room, and it's almost like that family's with you, even if they're not. So there's a major feeling of security that gets developed through martial arts training, adult, youth, anything, but you are asking specifically about youth development. And when security is present, there's actual potential that's open for connection. And in those connections is where life actually is happening. That's where positive manifestation starts happening. That's when you start actually networking, maybe even. But you are absolutely right about 8 to 10 is when they're almost at their creative height. That is like their pinnacle. And about 11 years old, about junior high, 6th grade, everything, your entire world shakes. It's a hurricane, it's a earthquake, it's a tornado, it's a tsunami. Everything happens about puberty. And it's just across the board. And it's so difficult because about 8 years old is just like you said, about 8 to 10. If you did not implant some type of foundation into their existence, when that happens, when puberty happens and all these relationships start falling apart, they feel insecure, they feel whatever. There's no foundation, right? And so, but when there is, it's a little easier to navigate, or you at least have some type of confidence in confiding in somebody else, versus when your foundation is rocky and there's nothing there. Like when I was growing up, I had absolutely nobody that even tried to understand me. So I was on my own. I was absolutely alone in trying to navigate the world with my brain.
Brutal.
Which, and so when I see other kids that are on the same genius levels and I see their creative potential, I want to make sure that they know there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. What do you need to make sure that, you know what I'm saying? And so I want to make sure, anyways, we're not going to get into that tangent, but yes, youth development, security is everything. And when you, like I said, when you can defend yourself, when you know you're ready for so many different things, because it's not just physical. It's not just if somebody pushes you, or that you know how to roll properly, or to break fall, or that you know how to duck, or, you know what I'm saying? That's not just that. It's mental. We train so that we don't have to fight, right? That's
Exactly.
what you're supposed to, that's what it's supposed to be. The real fight is in the training. It's not supposed to be, you know what I'm saying? But it's there if you need it. But it's so that you don't have to fight. And it's not just physical fighting. So when youth have that, for example, this last session, we have youth in our program about 5 to 12. No, he's 12 or 13 now. Anyways, we had them plant their own seed. And so they have their own plant that when we do meditation before class now, they have their plant in their hands. And we have one student who, one of the reasons we even did this is because he has zero self-worth. Zero. He's a younger brother to an older brother, and he has zero idea how to even communicate why, or if he even gives a shit about it anyways. And that's a huge problem. He's so talented. He's so good at martial arts. He picks up on everything like that. But he will be the first one to talk shit about himself and say that he's not ready. He didn't even test when he was ready, because he was not, and he shut all the way down. And so I'm like, what if we get them to see these plants as a completion of themselves, because that's what plants are. They feed us oxygen, we feed them carbon dioxide. It's literally, you know what I'm saying, we feed each other. What if they would meditate and they don't even have to speak it out? Because there's been so many times. How many times have you had in your life where you don't even know how to communicate what you're feeling? So what if you just telepathically gave it to your plant, and then they give you life back, and that's how you meditate? And then you can, at the end, you can speak life into your plant, like, you got this, you can grow, and stuff like that. And then you put it back on the windowsill. You water it, put it back on the windowsill. Little things like that make a huge difference. So it's not just physical that we're preparing them for. It's giving them a sense of security that, yes, nature has your back even. You know what I'm saying? So it's so much deeper than just learning some takedowns, although that is their favorite day. And then we also have this. We also have a football training dummy that I think it's labeled Big Block Roger. And so obviously its name is Roger. So what we do is we teach them how to do flying knees with it, because it's fun. Not because everyone should be like Tony Jaa, although we all should, because he's literally my favorite.
Thank you for mentioning that name. Yes, I was working at the movie theater when that movie came out.
Oh
my God. He's my favorite.
Every single one of us went into the movie theater, and there were 7 of us just standing there watching Tony Jaa perform these incredible feats. And then the general manager comes in, and he just stands behind us until one by one we turn around and we get thrown out for being. We all lost our breaks that day. It was terrible. But it was totally worth it.
It's so spiritually delicious to watch. Oh my God, Tony Jaa's everything.
Crazy.
So
I want to touch on something that you said. It's like the martial arts family. I resonated a whole lot with that language. You know, because I mean, when I was in Taekwondo, I don't know that I really felt that sense of family, but I never also really felt that strong sense of insecurity. Like I never really needed to lean into it. But I did find in my later years in life, as I was growing up, after being 14 or whatever, that, having that type of family and the security that it provided was profound. Like to know that there was, and I'll give just a quick example. I was, training at a Muay Thai gym. I won't say which one. And one of the guys there one he beat me up a little bit, nothing too crazy. But I went back like 2 weeks later, and there was a guy who comes in and he coaches every now and again. He's like, yeah, I heard about, somebody was giving you some grief a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I just couldn't believe that they did what they did to you. So I sparred with them. And when they started getting a little too heavy with me, he teep kicked him into the dressing room and just put him through a door, put him right on his ass. I'm like,
Wow.
But it was really powerful for me that, like, somebody, especially a coach, not only did he recognize that what happened in the gym was wrong, he went and took corrective action in his own unique way. I don't know that it was the best way to do it, but I still felt such a strong appreciation that even one person in this world would stand up for me when something went down like that. And it made me feel like $1,000,000. Like if I got into it and somebody just, dropped me out in the world, that somebody would care enough to help protect me if they were there.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. And my grandmaster, I had PTSD episodes that like throughout my martial arts journey. But my very first one started on the mats. It was when we were learning, it was at the very beginning, white belt. And we were learning like backwards break falls, like the back break falls and being pushed.
Yeah, I love those.
And yeah, except I didn't realize that I had severe trauma from an episode where an ex-boyfriend got violent with me and pushed me, and I ended up hurting a hip. And so I didn't even realize that that's what it was, but I started crying and I couldn't control it. Like I always have been able to. I could not stop the tears. And so once the Grandmaster realized what was happening, he had me go to the bathroom and collect myself. And it took like 30-40 minutes for me to collect myself. But he came and hugged me and then sat with me until he just knew. He always instinctually knew. So when it would happen, like it happened during testing, it would happen. And so like I would be hyperventilating because I had this man on top of me and I could not figure out what move was needed and how to get out from under this guy who was, you know what I'm saying? But it was testing. That's what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, I hear you, because you start to like panic and you're like, I need to do this, and then you just start kind of like wiggling, and then you.
Yes,
I
but
know
add
exactly
onto it that woman being on the bottom and the man being on top, and being overpowering you, and then you getting so pissed off that you cannot get out from under him. So how are you supposed to survive in the world? And so I'm getting so angry with myself, and then so it's the trauma and the rage at myself, like all at once. And it took me a while, you know what I'm saying? So like it happens on the mat, and to have a martial arts instructor that not only knows how to teach martial arts moves, but also knows how to protect their students against themselves or against trauma, that is fully trained in PTSD, understands just being trauma informed in general, and knows how to be hold space for their student while like on the mats. You know what I'm saying? It was so, and knows, and everyone at our dojo, like if somebody is having an episode or something, you turn around. If something happens to their uniform, you turn around. Like it's out of respect. Like you face your back to them so that they can collect themselves or whatever, and they're not being stared at. It's just a respect thing, and an honor thing. And that's so crucial. It's so crucial. Because what if he didn't know that? And he was just like, no crying on the mats. There's no crying in martial arts. Like, what are you doing? And then I would never have come back because I didn't feel safe. So
Sounds like
can I just point something out that you said in there that really just kind of, it hit me a little bit, and I want to address it. You said when you were underneath, you had a man on top of you, and you were having these emotions. The rage that you were feeling was being pointed towards yourself. And I found that to be that resonated with me, because you would think if you were a person in that position that you would have rage towards the person that maybe made you feel that way, or maybe you would have rage towards the person that's putting you in that position right now. But you very aptly pointed out the rage that's pointed towards yourself. And I was wondering if there's anything more that you could share about that.
I mean, If you really want a tangent, I'll try not to. When
No, tangents are good.
when when you when you are used to moving about and navigating the world on your own because society has taught you that everything about you is wrong, and you haven't found your people yet. There's not really people that get you, and if they do, it's only to an extent, and then you're left with the rest by yourself anyways. uh you're just alone. And I have always been an empath, and that gets manipulated a lot. So like when you have that seclusion, you just everything. And then on top of it, if you remember me talking about the troubled teen industry, when you're in those boarding schools, they brainwash you into like, it's great to teach kids accountability is extremely important, but they took it from this healthy zone down into your traumas are your fault. You need to find out what you did, what you could have done differently, you know what I'm saying, too, so that this didn't happen.
Yes.
And you realize that, oh, okay, so every way that, it's in, and so that I'm still dealing with that. I still feel like it, like, when you, and that's my biggest thing is protecting these teens and these, because the world and these conservatives and just all these ignorant people that have no idea anything about child psychology. A child up to like certain ages, they're the product. Like they're not even themselves. So like their behavior has to come from something. They're not just behaving like that because they were born an asshole. You know what I'm saying? Like if they're having trouble in school, if they're like, find out what the cause is, what is the root. And so here I am being blamed for my behavior that I was taught to learn in order to survive. And I'm getting blamed for that behavior. So then later on in years, you know what I'm saying, everything is my fault. If it's, you know what I'm saying, while,
Yes.
and there's a dichotomy going on though, because I was also always playing, like not always play, I played the victim in my head. I wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? So like things were always happening to me and everything like that. So it was just always about me because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how else to be. No one
Takes
taught
away
me.
your sense of control, and you have to be able to figure that out. And
Yes.
something that I think is really important for people to know is if you're a part of the neurodiverse community, particularly autism, ADHD, you will receive 30,000 more corrections in your adult when you're from 0 to 18 than a neurotypical child would. And those
Wow.
types of things can be absolutely crushing to
Yeah.
self-esteem, especially when you have people that perceive themselves as gifted or even are very gifted, but they see themselves as not being gifted. And they'll talk themselves out of doing things that they really love and are really great at because of those negative things. And they become
Yes.
this audio player in your mind. And I remember one specific time for me when I got my Eagle Scout, someone very, very close to me, just it was my dad. He cut me down. He pretty much said that it was that he did it and that it wasn't really something that I did. And it really took the teeth out of like one of the proudest moments of my life, something I worked 7 years for. And I never really forgave myself for that. And then I started looking back on it and I was like, wait a minute, like I did real good for the community. Like I did this myself. That's my name on there. Like I got probably 5 different awards from, community service organizations in the community. And like, I wrote it all off as, oh, this is just what happens when you're 18 years old. But no, like, I worked hard for that and I couldn't celebrate it. And things like that are just so frustrating. I see it so constantly, and particularly people that are part of the neurodiverse communities. So anyways, I wanted to bring that up because it's something, near and dear to my heart.
One thing I have.
Something-
Oh, sorry. One thing I've learned with training with former martial artists, whether it was in karate at River City, to basically this one ex-Olympic athlete, kickboxer at Peoria Muay Thai, that working with people with martial arts, like going with those, teaching those who are less skilled than you are, and engaging with those stronger and more knowledgeable than you are, changes you. Like you realize there's you both that strength is something you give and you receive.
Nice. Strength is something you give and receive. Yep.
Like another example,
Yeah, absolutely.
like another example. Again, I'm shouting out to Cedric that would Francis help was a very pivotal person in his life that who taught him discipline and strength. Again, shout out to both of them.
Nice.
So so
Well, there's
let's
something else I wanted to ask you about. It was, oh, I guess we touched on it a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about the troubled teen industry and what that was, what that experience was like for you. And I guess you really touched on some of that. Um, and I know you, so you're over in central Illinois or in Bloomington area. Are there any other like martial arts places that you've been checking out? Because I know that they used to have what was it, the Combat Academy? No, it wasn't Combat Academy. There was something that was over there for forever, and then they went away, and I couldn't find any MMA gyms over there or boxing gyms or anything anymore.
I wish I had the knowledge base to answer that question. I have been so deep into running BCAI. That's just not an avenue that I pursued. I've been running BCAI, but not by myself, but the bulk by myself. So like just all that pressure and every like the day-to-day tasks and everything, and then plus the vision of it and running multiple programs and such, and community events and all the things. It hasn't been something that I could do. I couldn't name 5 dojos here. I know that there's the usuals that you see on all the billboards and stuff, but I usually tend to gear
ATI or
towards the
whatever.
more, yeah, I tend to gear towards the ones that aren't on billboards and stuff. But I know that there's a couple like really, really great ones, and I know who to ask about what those are. I just don't have them in the forefront of my brain right now.
You're kind of like me too. Like once I know the person I need to ask, I'm like, when the time comes, I'll give them a call and
Yeah.
I'll go seek that thing out. But until then, I don't need that information rattling around in my brain.
so
It's frustrating.
so one thing we could explain why we're doing this podcast, Angelique. So this project of Peoria Life is called the Peoria Martial Arts Forum. One of the things is that we know that Peoria, not just Peoria, but Bloomington and the other parts of the central Illinois area, we have a thriving and notable martial arts and combat sports scene. Like we have Muay Thai, Jiu Jitsu, boxing, wrestling, Hokaido, and like, for example, another person I'm going to shout out named Marcos Hashimoto at Bradley University. He's a former karate master from Brazil. Like he kind of doesn't practice anymore because that certain style he can't find any gyms around here. Yet there are no boxing bouts here. There are no matches here or tournaments here for the most part. Even though we do produce professional level athletes. Like for example, Anthony Holloway, he had to leave. He has to go outside of Illinois to get his matches.
His last one was in L.A.
Yep.
Well, like, and when Anshuman, when we were training together, there was a guy named Nate. What was his last name again? Gaston. That's right, dude. He was just a specimen, just an absolute monster. And like he was working with Coach Blackerby, who in his own right he's an incredible coach. You know, I've only gotten to train with him a handful of times when he would come and do pad work. But every single time I would get a small session with him, I'd walk away a better fighter and just a better individual for being around him. And it was these experiences of like meeting these just incredible talents, just walking into a gym for the first time. And then we would get these, like Kenny Robertson, he was a former UFC fighter. Dan Hornbuckle used to fight in Bellator. Like all these ex-professional and current professional fighters showing up at the gym. And then you get to see exactly how they train, and everybody gets better because of it. And it was just this really cool microcosm of MMA, Muay Thai, boxing, all of it happening in this small gym. And we're like, man, like how, like, number one, this is happening and it's phenomenal, but like, why don't people know about this? I feel like if people knew about this, they would come and just in droves and support. So then we wanted to put something together where we could start platforming these martial artists and let the community know, the locals know, like, hey, we have some of the best Muay Thai practitioners in the world. We have the Anthony Holloway was ranked just above Jake Paul on the professional boards. Like, we have some of the best boxers in the world. We have some of the best programs in the world. Robert Bell running KOK Boxing. He's got some champions under him. Robert Bryan at the Combat Academy. Like, these guys are just incredible, and they're injecting themselves into the community. They're putting everything they have into these athletes. And we wanted to do what we could to put everything we had for them in social media and podcast.
That's brilliant. I mean, I do have a significant vision down here in Bloomington for a community campus. It's $100 million project, but one of the buildings will have a 2,000 square foot like professional dojo that we could bring in competitions and such to make sure that they have a space, right? Because Grandmaster was doing Tuma camps. I don't know if you ever heard of Tuma, the United Martial Arts Association, and he would do Tuma camps, which is like, and he would do a regional one, but then they would also have an East Coast one. And so the regional one, they would have used to have at Heartland, and the most recent one, the last one that happened was 2019, I want to say, and that was in Downs, but that was so powerful for that many dojos to come together, and then you meet the other black belts, the other instructors, the other dojo like owners, and you get to learn their styles, and it's all in a pressure-free space. You're literally just learning other people's styles. I think that is like one of the coolest and most powerful things I've ever been a part of. Is those?
Yeah, let's do that. We should make one of those.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be made again, because it's very, very powerful to just show up somewhere and just be honored and respected for being a martial artist. No one's bullying, no one's looking down on you for, you don't know this, but you're a black belt kind of thing. Like, it's none of that. It's okay, you're gonna teach jiu-jitsu, you're gonna teach Hapkido, you're gonna teach Racki, you're gonna teach, you know what I'm saying, and you do all of these different. And it's so cool. That's so cool to me. Like, I would love to. And they have 2 mats going on at the same time, so you get to choose. And it's a whole weekend. And it was just so cool. So, yeah, I would love to have that again. I won't be able to get my campus. I'm not sure when I'll get my campus. But, yeah, I feel like it's in the works, but it's going to be a minute.
Got supporters over here. I mean, we're definitely behind you. And I mean, I know that in like Normal, Illinois, they built that new event center, and they haven't been attracting the events that they've been looking for, at least a number of them. So they would be a likely candidate to host something like that for an affordable price, especially if it's somebody in the community. So I'm just saying, I think that there's opportunity for us to do it without spending $100 million and creating access now, as opposed to, maybe 10 or 15 years from now, or maybe we get some grant money next year. That'll be cool. And just build a giant event center and let people come down. But I'm curious, what's your vision on that event center? So like, you have a dojo in there, but what's the grand idea? If you want to share.
So that $100 million campus, there will be that main building that has a giant foyer with like nooks in the walls that you could just sit inside the wall and like read or chill or whatever. Every floor, there's gonna be at least 3 or 4 floors, and each floor for the foyer will have slides going down, so that you don't just have to do elevator or stairs. You can take the slide. That's important to me. But no, that will be event spaces. The second floor is the dojo, the professional dojo space, plus all the BCAI. No, the dojo's on the 3rd floor. And then there's also going to be 24-hour childcare, which is so mandatory, and we don't really have anything reliable like that. The other building would be a holistic wellness center. Then there will be, the 3rd building is a teen club. So not necessarily like a boys and girls club. It's actually like the 1st floor is like a legit nightclub for teens. So it'll have a stage and an open floor and like a bar for like smoothies and like juices and stuff, energy drinks maybe, and then there'll be retail spaces. The 2nd floor will be rec spaces. The rooftop, or the 3rd floor would be for like learning and like businesses and like starting businesses and stuff. And then one of the retail spaces would be for that accelerator and incubator services. So you could try out your products in this one store. And so everyone in the town could come to this one store and see, and you can test out your branding and all that fun stuff. The rooftop would be AstroTurf. But that teen club is ran by teens. So 60% of the workforce for that building would be teens. And they would be at the planning table. They would plan all, like they would help decide all the operations. They would be part of the security team. They would be part of management and janitorial and event planning and all that stuff, and they'd be part of all of it. And then
I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and then we'd have like this bomb ass like green, not color green, but yes, color green, but like green as in like healthy for the planet parking deck. So the parking deck would be like however big, and then there would be like 4 floors of affordable housing, and then the other quarter would be for like Habitat for Humanity to do duplexes or whatever. Like we just want to make sure that we have this community campus that meets 90 to 95% of the community needs. And so it's also right making revenue, and people that come for like seminars and performances and events and all this stuff would be spending money around. So it's gonna make the town like millions of dollars. So it's a pretty genius thing. I don't usually like to talk about it, so I probably shouldn't have actually talked about it on this podcast, but whatever. I'm really excited about it. It's a really big opportunity. And let's see here.
I appreciate
so that's like the big
your biggest dream like that. That's really cool.
And see, that's just it. Is like I even recently had this thought. Like, well, I was listening to somebody on YouTube, and even they were saying like this big dream that you have, that's not even the biggest thing that you're meant to do here. You know what I'm saying? And this is it's $100 million project. And so I'm thinking like that's like it. But I also have ideas for like global cultural exchanges as well. So like
I have kind of a cool the story to share. So I had and it goes into that main thing. Like I was working in renewable energy, and really pushing things forward there, and I had a wonderful time doing it. But one of the individuals that I was working with was from South Africa and knew some people that were high up in the government. It was a minister of energy and housing, and they were trying to work with them to figure out some of the power crisis they have, because currently they're on a load sharing. They only have about 60% of the power that they need to supply for the power grid right now. And so took me about a month, but I spent some time, and I put together a project, and I pulled in some key individuals. And it was going to wind up being like a multifaceted, like hundreds of millions of dollars invested. But I figured out a way to solve the power crisis, and then on top of that, without using nuclear energy, which was one of the challenges. And then on top of that, we were also able to. I looked into some new technology in concrete, and was able to develop affordable housing that you could do up to 2 stories high, and you could create all local infrastructure. It was all carbon negative. It was fireproof and earthquake proof, wind proof. Because like right now, the concern that you have is like in South Africa, there's these big towns, and they're all like kind of on top of each other in these poor communities just on the edge of the town. And if a fire starts, it burns down everything. Like, yeah. I mean, hundreds of people will die and thousands will lose their homes. So I came up with this idea, and like just as we were like talking to this guy to get everything implemented, we got a phone call from somebody else, one of the other ministers that knew about us, and was like, don't take money from this guy. He's about to go down really hard.
Wow.
And it turned out he was running groups that were going into like farm areas and just killing people and taking their land. So he was running these murder groups.
Oh my God.
He knew that somebody was coming for him. So he was essentially using us to send money overseas. Yeah. So he would have money when he left the country.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was crazy. So but the beginning of it was like, I mean, I got to work on this profound thought experiment of how to solve, not only an energy crisis, but also a housing crisis. And then I think back to that. There was a guy in Bloomington who was like, I've got, 40 acres of land here, 150 tiny homes, so we can just eradicate homelessness from Bloomington. And I just, and that was back in
I feel like I
2022.
know that
I'm not
same
sure where the
person.
project's at today.
You remember his name?
It was just such a, I don't, I read it in an article and I was like, man,
I'd
it
have
was
to.
just awe-inspiring.
I know. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And like, even if he doesn't accomplish like what he set out to accomplish, he planted the seed in my mind to help other people to be able to put together a solution that would help everybody in the community. And so I'm so grateful that he not only put his money where his mouth was and stepped in to fill the gap where so many other organizations have failed, but he was willing to I'm sorry, beyond that, but he planted that seed in my mind that this is something that I can do too. I can help support in my own unique way with hempcrete and 3D printers.
So I want to ask you a question, Angelique. So
Yes.
how do you build trust with students who have experienced trauma or instability?
Phenomenal question. I really love that question. Because it is important. And if I'm gonna tell instructors, educators, administrators that they need to be trauma informed, it's helpful to give insight into that.
That's true.
So what I do for students, for example, one example, we had a pretty amazing young boy who African American, autistic in the most beautiful ways, super loving, loved to sing, also hadn't had a lot of practice with being in a classroom setting, in the sense of knowing like you are distracting other people and we can't get anything done.
Oh.
And so having to balance, so this isn't necessarily trauma, but we eventually found out that there was trauma, because yes, on the mats we were able to start like little by little. His mom is so used to apologizing for him, and I kept having to tell her like, no, stop. Stop, because he's safe here. You don't need to do that. I am trying to tell you that he is actually improving. You may not see it because you're used to what the teachers are telling you and what everyone else is telling you, but I'm telling you, he is improving. He is getting it. It may not seem like it, but I see those little things. So first is making sure the parents deconstruct and undo what the world has done to them on behalf of their child. Because you need that parent, because you only have that child for 1 hour a week. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
They're with the child all the rest of the hours. So
Yeah.
if like that's mandatory first, that's one, is making sure the parents understand there's nothing wrong with your child. And I am so sorry that everything in their life has told you something different, but you don't have to defend them here. I will defend them. Okay. And so that's one thing. But then when he then went from being in our martial arts class to then doing our summer camp, and we did it at Illinois Wesleyan. We were holding it at Wesleyan in classrooms, like their classrooms, which we didn't think anything of it. But we noticed that he got really, really triggered very easily in those classrooms, as opposed to BCAI's studio. So we had to notice that. And then so we had to restructure the summer camp for him, not the whole camp. Everyone else still got the full camp, but he maybe only came for certain days or sessions that we would put out, just to make sure that he felt safe and included and still got the benefits of it, right? So adapting and like making sure you have enough help to do this. So if it's just you at your dojo and you have 12 students, you won't be able to take on a neurodivergent child. You won't be able to take on a severely ADHD child. You won't be able to, it's not going to be fair to the other students, and it's definitely not going to be fair to you or that student. They're going to feel like the problem, and it's not their fault that you don't have enough staff, right? And so that's been my problem multiple times, is that we just didn't have it. So I made sure that we started having more capable volunteers or other people that could come in to help with these classes when I knew that he would be there, something like that. So that's one. Another thing is, part of martial arts is learning to not be distracted in the first place, right? So there's a learning opportunity for everyone in that classroom, in that dojo, on those mats. There's a learning opportunity. So I want to make sure that, one, this neurodivergent child knows that there's nothing wrong with them. They are not a problem. You know what I'm saying? They need to know that, while also teaching them little by little that there's a class going on and you're part of it, but we're not accomplishing much because I keep having to come over here, right? So little by little, but making sure that the wording is on purpose. It's intentional. And I venture to say that the person that can communicate that the best is the neurodivergent educator who was shut down by education systems and parents and etc. We know what not to say because we know what feels like shit. And that would undo the work that we're doing with this person. So giving them the space to be themselves, while dichotomy, also teaching them how to be themselves in certain settings, right? So you need both. I need you to stay who you are, please, but I also need you to understand that there's a whole world out here too. It's not just you. And so if you get to be yourself, they need to be able to be themselves too. So we got to figure out how to coexist. And that's lessons for him. That's lessons for the rest of the kids on the mat. And then the student that I mentioned earlier who self-worth is like super low and doesn't know how to communicate. He has days where he is just completely shut down and he's not going to answer your questions. But he will do some of the drills, maybe. And the parent needs to be okay with that, him having a bad day. I need to be okay with that. The other instructors, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we don't want to do stuff, we don't want to,
Hello, Soul.
Hey, yeah.
Hey, Soul, you miss me?
So great to meet
no,
you.
Soda's inside. Soda's not this little anymore.
Oh.
Oh,
That's
my.
the theory.
I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. That's adorable.
Yeah, he's 2.5 now.
So
I wanted to touch on something real quick. So there was actually a really fascinating study that they did on neurodivergence and communication. And what they did was they take individuals who are neurodivergent, and they would place them into rooms with neurotypical individuals. And they found that all of the things that you would typically find would happen with neurodiverse. And then they took those same individuals and they dropped them into a group that was just other neurodiverse individuals. And you know what they found? There were 0 communication issues. They communicated just fine. It was just a difference in perception and how they were communicating their perceptions that kind of drove a wedge between the neurodiverse and the neurotypical minds that you would find. So I just thought that was really, really interesting, because that something like that really resonated with me, because how many times have I been in a room and I felt super uncomfortable and I didn't know why? And then the same thing on the other end. I'm like, certain people I just gravitate towards and I can talk to for hours, and I just could never really understand why. And it's like they're likely neurodiverse or part of that segment, just like me.
Right, but like when you're speaking with trauma, like that youth that has the self-worth issues, there's trauma there. There's parental trauma, there's societal trauma. Like we work with ACEs scores a lot. So are you familiar with ACEs scores?
No.
Adverse childhood experiences. You need to look it up. You should know your own. That's really important in being trauma informed. But these students, they have a lot. They already have a lot coming in. And one of the most important things is not to push them. if you're pushing them and they're not ready, like just as adults, we don't want to be put like we have these unrealistic expectations for youth to regulate their emotions and to behave certain ways and shit. We don't even know how to do it half the time. So
Yeah.
we need to have a more realistic relationship with youth, from adults to youth, than is currently in reality. Period. Youth,
And
it
I
needs to be
find
understood
even for
that.
myself, like,
I was just saying that it's imperative to understand that every new generation that comes came for the one before it. So it's not we're here for them to teach them how to do everything. No, they're here for us. You know, if everything that we're struggling with and that we're triggered by and everything, that they seem to have a lot of the answers if we listen and pay attention. But yeah, so while we're teaching them how to survive and not get themselves killed, which is really what I have to do with my 2.5-year-old. It's like I feel like just keeping him
Yeah.
alive is the whole thing.
So,
But at least he's experimental and he loves living life, and great. Anyways, but yeah, I want to you gotta make security. It always goes back to security.
yeah.
When adults throw temper tantrum, when we are yelling at kids, that's a temper tantrum.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
well, I
saying?
was just gonna touch on that because, like,
Yeah.
I find that, like, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and like they start fighting about stuff, and I'm realizing as you're talking that when I'm, if I'm getting frustrated, and and I start getting loud, it's because I'm not adequately prepared for the conversation that needs to happen, and I've mismanaged the expectations in my mind about what a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old is fully capable of, and
Right.
that's not their fault. And me
Right.
yelling at them is just reinforcing the stupidity behind, or the ignorance behind myself. And if I took the
I have
time,
to check myself daily.
exactly,
daily,
if I take the
every
time and
time.
I check myself, and I learn something new every single day, that I can be better for my children. And it helps me to not yell as much. I'll be totally frank on this. It was probably 5 or 6 months ago. I just found myself like in this state for like a few weeks where I was yelling at my children for like just too often. Like I wasn't communicating in a way that was healthy, and it seemed to just escalate so rapidly. And I really had to take a step back and look internally and go, what am I doing here? Like, these are my children. Like, I've taught them everything that they know, and if they're not ready for this particular mandate that I've set up in my head, like, they're just not ready for it. And I need to be leading with grace, but I also need to give myself some grace and say, hey, it's okay to make a mistake, own it. And when I make a mistake, and if I yell at my son, I'll come back to the table and I'll go, you know what? That was really inappropriate. I shouldn't have yelled at you.
Yeah.
So-
This is the way I would like to handle it in the future. And then I'll gain agreement with him on it. And that's what we do. And he helps hold me accountable, and I help hold him accountable. And it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship, but it requires this tremendous amount of mental effort to continue to move forward. And then over a period of time, it becomes a lot more natural. I still myself feeling really frustrated right now. You take a pause, and then step away for a moment, come back. Yeah. What's up, Anshu?
So just to let you guys know, we've kind of went past the 1 hour mark, so we're gonna have to bring this interview to a
I
close.
gotta get the baby anyways. But
So,
yeah.
Thank you for everyone for watching Peoria Fight Talks. Thank you, Angelique, for being on our show today. And for those who don't know, please, if whatever you can, please support BCAI. I didn't butcher it, did I?
No, BCAIarts.org. You do need to know, if you go through PayPal, that they will take a fee out of what you're giving us, so we won't get the full amount. So I recommend using Venmo, BCAICAH, and then, or send us a check. If you need to reach out, just reach out. You can get our contact information, either social medias or on our website. But yeah.
That's
Appreciate
wonderful.
it.
Thank you so much. BCAI, these are the young sung heroes of Bloomington Normal. We need to support these people. Do it with your mouths, your checkbooks. Show up to these events. Put your weight behind them. Help these youth. These are the boots on the ground that are helping to shape the future of our country right now. So thank you so much for being here, Angelique. It was an absolute pleasure being with you. This is Fight Talks with Peoria Martial Arts, Peoria Martial Arts Forum, and PeoriaLife.com.
Thank you, everybody.